Flesh Rainbow Tori here. How are you? I hope you're all doing well. So for today's video, you can tell we are touching on some serious topics here because I have an actual paper list. There's no notes on phones or any of that. We have got a handwritten list for today's video. That's how you know how seriously I've taken this. So I think a lot of you guys would have seen this video coming, especially if you follow me on Instagram or if you just know me if you've watched my vlogs or whatever. I think we could all see this video was coming. While I was in Florida and while I've been home and doing Q&As on my Instagram, if you don't follow me on Instagram, link is in the description. You get a bit of different content. I also do Q&As on there quite often, so you know, come join the fun. Link in the description. I think on all of the Q&As I have done since returning from Florida, people are always asking me about Walt Disney World and Paris and making me compare the two, and every time I will, you know, I grew up at Disneyland Paris. I first visited there in July 2000, so how old was I? Less than a year old. I was a little baby. And then I visited pretty much every year. I now visit multiple times a year. It is my local park, it is my home park, so there's nothing taken away from the fact that I will always be a Paris girly. It's what I've always known, it's what I will always know. So, and then visiting these new parks, people are gonna ask me to compare it. But the thing is, what I did always mention when people were asking me about comparisons and what I thought of the two, is you do have to keep in mind, I will always be biased for Paris. It's what I grew up with, it's what I'm used to, you know? And that's completely, I think that is completely fair. When I am in Paris, all the time, you can't go on a Disneyland Paris trip without hearing an American accent. And every time I hear an American accent, they are always comparing it to whichever local park they've come from, California or Florida. Every time they're always comparing it. And whenever I hear these conversations, they're always putting their local park as, you know, they're always favouring that. So then Paris will always get overviewed. Whereas with me, I was always favouring Paris. So I just think, I was just saying this before we get into this because you can argue that I'm going to be biased for Paris. But I feel like whichever park you are coming from, like say, like, you know, Tokyo might be your local park and then you come over to Paris. You're probably going to favour Tokyo. You are generally always going to favour the one that you know the most. So what I have done, there's so much that I could go into to compare Walt Disney World with Disneyland Paris. And I've only done the things where I think it is a fair comparison. Because obviously you can't compare things like, you know, who has the biggest park? Florida. You know, there's just some things that I didn't compare on because like I didn't think it was fair. So I have a split column here. We have Walt Disney World and Disneyland Paris. And so when I thought of a criteria for one, I then made sure I could have the same criteria for the other park. And then this is how organised I've been. Can you see some have highlighted the bullets on? That's the winning side. So I've done what it is at both parks and then highlighted it. And I tried to be as fair as I could. But as I said, I wanted, you know, it to be a fair argument. I didn't want to have one where, you know, one didn't have, you know, each corner of a battle needs to have even things to battle with, you know. So that hence why I didn't bring up, you know, which has more parks, which has a water park. We're not going to have a water park at Paris, are we? You're going to have like 2 days of the year when you can use it. Other than that, you're going to be freezing. So obviously I didn't bring up things like that. Everything is a fair game. So how many rounds have we got? There's 6 rounds in this. And also before we do get into this, this is my opinion. This is me, someone who grew up at Disneyland Paris, visiting Walt Disney World, my personal opinion. I understand you probably won't agree with this. You're probably going to have different thinking, probably going to have a different opinion to that, but that's fine. I think this is just a little bit of fun. If you have visited either of these parks, whether you're a local to Florida or that's the park you visited, or if you're local to Paris and you visited Walt Disney World, whichever side you're from, whichever crossover you are doing, let me know your opinions on all of these in the comments down below. I just think it'll be a little bit of fun. That's what it is, it's a little bit of fun. Okay, so the first point I want to talk about is menu options. From me personally, if you watched my vlog series, you'll know, and I just want to say at Paris as well, but mainly at Florida, I struggle. I am a vegetarian, so quite often on my travels I do struggle with menu options. But what I found in America, when I was in America in general, is vegetarian doesn't seem to be a thing. I did get some pre-warning about that because one of my best friends, shout out Riss, is American, and so before I went I was bombarding her with questions, and I did say to her, what is it going to be like for me food-wise, and she did kind of pre-warn me that I wasn't going to get the best of options, so I did go into it knowing that. However, in the parks, some restaurants had no options for me. Some had like one option I could go with, some... I was never in a situation where I was spoiled for choice, let's just say that. There was some, like you'd have seen in the Hollywood Studios vlog, we're at Woody's lunchbox. There was two options that could be classed as vegetarian. The option I went with was a grilled cheese. It's not technically a vegetarian option because it is just on like the general menu. But obviously that's the option I went with because I am just a vegetarian. I do eat cheese and that sort of stuff. So that's what I went with. There was a plant-based option, but I didn't consider it because it was chili. It had something to do with chili and I don't do spicy things. But a lot of the time, as you would see in the vlogs, I did struggle. So hopping it over to Disneyland Paris, it's only been in more recent years vegetarian options have got better. So up until, I think it was probably like 2017 when Paris had a little bit of a switch up. Disneyland Paris was very much the same as Walt Disney World with its menu items. It either wouldn't have a designated vegetarian option or it would have something, you know, like the cheese toasty. But now it has become a general thing that in all restaurants there will be at least one vegan option. And even in Walt Disney Studios Park there is a whole vegan, I was going to say restaurant, that's always what I want to say, but it's not. It's a food cart. It's an entirely vegan food cart. So, you know, I go there and I'm spoiled for choice. There's so much for me to choose from. But now at all quick service restaurants, I do find there's usually two things I can have. There's usually like a burger and a salad. And now they are expanding more things. So now Toad Hall has reopened after its refurbishment. There's a vegan fish option on there, which I was very excited about because that's the whole point of Toad Hall restaurant. Always missed out on Casey's Corner hot dogs because hot dogs. We now have a Casey's hot dog, vegan hot dog, but I do just want to also mention that they did have one at Florida as well. It was very good. So with these points aside, I have given this point for vegetarian menu options to Paris just because every restaurant I have been in Paris there is at least one option for sure. If not, most of the time there's two because usually there is a salad. Whereas when I was in Florida, most salads had chicken or ham in it, something that obviously I can't eat. Whereas over in Paris, all restaurants had at least one main menu item and then a salad. And quite often I do have more than one option. So for vegetarian food-wise, the point goes to Disneyland Paris. Okay, the second criteria is park hopping. Now this one was very confusing for me. So before the trip, I did message some of my friends, some of my British friends that go to Florida quite often, asking them like, what is the deal? Because I was very confused from where I've watched vlogs before. And all I could find online was it was park hopping after 2 p.m. But then I see people doing the 4 park day challenge. I'm like, well, how can you do that if it's after 2 p.m? My brain was hurting because if you haven't been to Disneyland Paris and you're not aware, we don't have a time frame on park hopping. You can do what you want when you want. Quite often what I would do is, if I have extra magic hours, which I rarely do, I'll use my extra magic hours in studios, do the rides that I want to do in there, and then I'll park hop into main park. Or what I'm doing now, I'll go into studios, do Adventures Campus, which I only really do Web Slingers and see if Loki's about, then do Ratatouille, and then park hop out into the main park. There's no time that you can do it. You can literally go in and out. You know, sometimes I'm not even in studios for an hour and then I can park hop. It did take me some very getting used to waiting to 2 p.m. So if you've watched the vlog series, on our second half of the trip, we were doing mornings in one park and then park hopping to Magic Kingdom in the other park. It took us a bit of getting used to when we'd done everything in that morning park and then we were ready to park hop, but we were like, oh, it's only 12. We can't, we've still got another 2 hours. It took a bit of getting used to, and I'm sure there is a reason as to why they have this 2 p.m. thing in policy, but It was just very confusing for me to get used to. As I said, at Paris we can park up whatever time you want. I don't know if it's because of the number of parks you have to do. There was also the thing, but again this is completely understandable, that obviously you make your park reservations and you have to go to that park first before park hopping. Obviously we have that at Paris. If you've reserved your ticket for studios, you have to go to studios first and then you can park hop into Paris. I just didn't understand why it was 2 p.m. If anyone can tell me in the comments down below, I'd be interested in learning why. See, this point does again go to Disneyland Paris, just because I like being able to park hop whenever and when and where you want. It also makes it easier if you're doing things like Genie Plus and all the different, you know, fast passes that you can do nowadays, and with things like Line Bertie at Disneyland Paris, getting reservations to do character meets and like your fast passes, and like if you see a rider's short queue, with it being so close at Disneyland Paris, you can just come and go when you want. Get your Genie pass for that ride, park hop in that part. It just makes it so much easier instead of waiting for 2 p.m. Disneyland Paris, 2 points. So for debate number 3, we are actually stepping outside of the parks into the car park. I know, stay with me here. So this goes for both, you know, the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Both Walt Disney World and Disneyland Paris have massive car parks. So at Disneyland Paris, the main car park is for both of the parks and the Disney Village. Disney Village does technically have its own car park called the Indigo car park, but we don't need to talk about Indigo. We're not talking about Indigo today. So it's a massive car park and it's also set a bit back from the parks and the village, and there is like a long walkway you have to get up to, and it is quite a long walk to do. But in the middle of the car park, and then it kind of takes you up the tunnel up to security, there are travelators. And let me tell you, when I was a kid and even today, that's like the first ride of the day, getting to go on the travelators. It's just that little bit of joy. However, I can probably count on one hand how many times the travelator is actually working. Most of the time I go, the travelators aren't working. So the idea is there, they're just never working. Then a very long walk. The good thing about having travelators there is obviously it is a long walk to the car park, from the car park to the parks, and it kind of just saves your legs ready for the day when they're working. However, over at Florida, and this was in all of the parks except for Epcot, because Epcot's car park was, obviously we roped dropped, so we were quite near to the front anyway. So I don't know if you would arrive later in the day if it was the same, but we just didn't have it because we were so close to the front of the car park anyway. You could probably touch the Epcot ball from the car. The car parks had trams. Again, it's like another first ride of the day, like with the travelators, but it's even fun. It's a tram. I would just like to say that the Florida car parks were probably bigger than the Disneyland Paris car park. But you know, again, same, it saves your legs. It's a nice little first ride of the day. And also at the end of the day, you know, you are so tired, your legs cannot carry you any further, so it's just nice to have that little tram to take you back to your car. So both car parks at both parks do have those options to save your legs from getting you to the car, to the parks, or from the parks to your car. However, this point is actually going to Walt Disney World, because the trams, I think in most of the parks I found they had 2 trams, so you didn't have to wait long at all. You know, if one left the station, one was probably coming back, so you didn't have to wait long for them at all, and they take you straight up to your car. Not straight up to your car. There's like little stations. There's never too far to walk, was what I'm saying. And yeah, there's always one coming round. Most I probably waited was 2 minutes for a tram. There's always plenty of space on there, and they'll take you right up to the gates of security. It's nice and easy. So this point goes to Walt Disney World. Number 4, photo pass. Now, I do just want to first off start off by saying I do think my point on this might be a little biased because of the ticket bundle I got when booking my Florida tickets. I did get photo pass included in it. So all of my photo pass I did technically get for free because it was included in my bundle. However, if you were to go to the parks and buy photo pass there, I think it was $199. But you'll then, I think once you paid your $199, you are like unlimited photo pass. And at Florida, I do think it is very much worth it having PhotoPass, because they were all over the place. And every time I saw one, I stopped and got a photo. And obviously you get the magic shot. You know, I had Tinkerbell in my hands a few times. I went over New Year's, so there was quite a few where I was like blowing confetti. Galaxy's Edge, so fun doing PhotoPasses there. So that's why I just wanted to mention that I didn't pay the $199 to have the PhotoPasses. It was already included in my ticket bundle. When I brought my tickets for the parks, obviously I got all of the day tickets, and then it got some extras included, such as the PhotoPass. I also got a letter. English, sorry. I got a letter from Mickey Mouse. It's on my Instagram, you can see it, where he's sent me a letter going, "Dear Tori, I hear you're coming to Florida on such and such date." It was really cute. I got loads of things included in my ticket bundle, and PhotoPass was one of them. However, I do think if I was to go to Florida again and it wasn't included in my ticket bundle, because honestly I don't know how I got it included, it was just something lucky, I guess, I might look into, you know, buying it for the $199, because it's definitely worth every penny. At Disneyland Paris, I've never seen an option to buy a PhotoPass. I've never known the option to get PhotoPass included in your like ticket bundle. But obviously saying that, when I go to Disneyland Paris, it's not like I'm going on a Florida holiday where I'm getting a bunch of tickets. So maybe that's why I've never found the option. But usually what I know of, it's you can get it through two things. Either you pay for it, which I can't remember how much it is. It's probably a few €100. Or no, there is another option, which I don't think that it was available at Florida, but it's no shame. You can buy the PhotoPasses individually, because obviously you'll get PhotoPass from like character meet and greets where they have their official photographer, and like ride photos. You can then go on the website and view them and buy them individually. You can buy them all together for however many hundreds, or individually. And individually a photo is €19.99, which is why when we were in Florida, we were comparing it. We were like, so if each photo is like at Paris and it's $19.99, add that up with how many PhotoPasses we have had, the $199 is so worth it. Only way at Disneyland Paris you can get your PhotoPasses included is with annual passes, and at Paris there is, I think we did have 5 types of annual passes. They are slowly all losing their benefits, but the price is going up. Sad times. I think it is with the top 2 levels of annual passes, you do get PhotoPass included for your year of your annual pass, and you get them unlimited. It was a very long-winded thing, but I am giving this point to Walt Disney World, because it was just a magical thing, you know, when booking your tickets, finding out you had PhotoPass included, and you know, we went to town with it. It was at Disneyland Paris. I've only ever gotten one PhotoPass picture, and that was because my friend had an annual pass and she offered, and I had a picture of Pooh where me and him were kissing on the noses, and it was so cute, and my family didn't catch the picture on time on my phone, and so the only way I'd be able to get it was through the PhotoPass, but I didn't really want to pay the $19.99, but my friend had an annual pass and she was really nice about it, so she got it for me. So yeah, points for PhotoPass go to Walt Disney World, because 1, it was included in the bundle, and 2, there's just so many more different options. Ride photos, character photos. They also had one station in front of like every park icon. They were just all over the place. So even if you are paying for it, you are getting your money's worth. Whereas at Paris, I don't think you're getting your money's worth as much. So we are currently 2 points to Paris and 2 points to Florida. Moving on to point number 5, languages. I think that's the best way to put this. At Disneyland Paris, when you're auditioning for a job, or you know, you're trying to get a job at Disneyland, obviously they have their long list of criteria that you need to meet in order to get a job. One of them, which is one of the bits that I've struggled on and a lot of people do struggle on, is you have to be fluent in at least, keyword underline put in bold, at least 3 languages. And I have never looked into the specifics of it, but I'm assuming English and French are your preferred, and then another one of your choice. And from what I have heard, because I have had several friends work at Disneyland Paris, the more languages you are fluent in, the more preferred you're going to be. And at Disneyland Paris, I have never found a cast member that can't speak to you in English, and quite often when you're doing character meets, the character attendant will come up and talk to you before it's your turn, and what they're doing is they're just finding out what your first language is, or what your first or second language is, so then they can pass that message on to the character, so then the character can interact with you better in your first language, or if not your second language, so it's an easier experience for you. So when you meet Darth Vader, you go into this little waiting room and the cast member comes out and they talk to you, and they're basically just finding out what language you speak. And then they go back and they tell Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader talks to you in your language, and it just makes the whole experience a bit better and adapted better to you. Whereas over at Florida, and I think it is the same with California, but obviously we're not talking about California in this video, I believe there isn't actually a minimum requirement of languages to speak. From what I gathered, it was all English or Spanish. So this point is going over to Paris, because I do like their policy of having to speak 3 minimum languages fluently. Obviously, with it being in France, everything at Disneyland Paris, it is split 50-50 French and English. So obviously most of your visitors there are French, and most people have English as a second language. But then there's always going to be a cast member that will speak like Spanish or German or Italian. There's always cast members all over the place that cover like a lot of the languages. So no matter what whatever your first language is going there, it's quite likely that a cast member will be there, be able to help you in your first language, because it's always just easier being able to do things in your first language. Whereas when I was over in Florida, there was a German couple that I was behind in a queue at the tills. They didn't speak very good English, and the person on the till did not speak any German, and she was not being very helpful at all with them to try and explain to them what she was saying. She was speaking so quickly, I couldn't even understand how her American accent, let alone someone that doesn't have English as first language. So I do think that would be quite a good thing for all Disney parks to have, you know, a minimum of fluent languages, just so you can make the experience for all guests a bit easier by able to speak in their first language. So now we are on 2 points to Walt Disney World and 3 points to Paris. I'm just looking at my list, is that right? Yeah, 3 to Paris, 2 to Walt Disney World. And we have 1 more category remaining, and that is to do with the castles. Now, I'm not talking about the outside of the castle. Personally, I do still think Paris is more prettier, but again, that's just because I've seen it more. Don't get me wrong, Florida, it's a gorgeous castle, it's a huge castle, but we're not focusing on the outsides of the castles. We're focusing on what the castle actually has to offer you. So taking away from any paid extras, we're talking about what you can do as you're just a guest in the park, what you can do. So at Florida, you can walk through the castle. Up the little ramps at the side, through the castle, there you go, carousel straight ahead of you. That was pretty much it. Yes, I do understand the inside of the castle is quite pretty. They've got all the walls decorated, and it was all very pretty and all of that. But when you compare it to what I'm used to at Paris, at Disneyland Paris, actually before I get on to Disneyland Paris, I know people were going to bring up in comments, which is why I said I'm only focusing on the non-paid extras. Obviously there is the Cinderella's restaurant inside the castle, like on the 2nd floor at Florida. But obviously that's only if you're paying extra for the restaurant. We're just focusing on if you're a park guest. So over at Paris, yes, you can just walk through the castle. However, once you're in the castle, we do have 2 shops inside the castle. So if you're coming to the castle from Main Street Way, on the right there is a Christmas shop, all year round Christmas. It's amazing. And then on the left is what I call the expensive shop, and it's so magical. They sell like glass and like all those kind of things, and there is the person in there making it, and they've got the flame, you know, where they're doing all the melting and shaping, and it's amazing to watch. And like they make those glass wands, and it's amazing. So not only do you have the 2 shops inside, but we do have a 2nd floor of the castle that you can walk around, and it has a bit of like Sleeping Beauty artwork and bit from the movie, and then you can go outside on the balconies on the 2nd floor and get an amazing view over Fantasyland. And also sometimes up on that balcony there is Aurora and is it Prince Philip? I always forget the names of the princes. It's Prince Philip, isn't it? Yeah, they're sometimes on the balcony inside the castle. And sometimes at Halloween, Maleficent is on the balcony outside of the castle. And then not only that, can you walk around the castle, and then you got the shops. If you come out of the castle and go round, there's obviously the dragon underneath the castle. And what does give the extra edge for this is I do believe Paris is the only Disney park in the world to have a dragon under the castle. So point goes to Paris, as the castle is always such a, it's the main icon of all Disney parks. And I do think Paris does have the most to offer. Obviously, dragon underneath the castle, shops inside the castle, walk through, up the castle. Yeah. Point goes to Disneyland Paris for castle. So that is 4 points for Disneyland Paris and 2 points for Florida. But as we did already establish, I was kind of always going to be leaning towards Paris. But I did try my hardest to think of even playing fields where both would put up a fair fight. You know, such as the car park. They both have options to make it more accessible and easier to walk from your car to the destination, but one's just better than the other. If you have any other things where we can compare the two parks, do let me know in the comment section down below. And just remember, this was all completely my opinion. If you may have opinions, I know quite a lot of people that are from UK. Paris is their local park, it's the park they've been to the most. However, Florida is their favourite park and they call that their home park. We all have our different preferences when it comes to parks. I just thought this was going to be a little fun to compare, and people have been asking me to compare the two. So I made a list. As I said, if you guys would like to do any more comparisons and we can have a little discussion, do comment down below. If you did enjoy this video, do pop that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see any more comparison videos, like between the parks, and like any more specific topics and we can do comparisons on in videos in the future, do let me know. I think this would be quite fun. Let me know. And if you'd like to see more from Walt, don't forget to click subscribe down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to ding the notification bell. You might as well. You're down there. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!